Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Scum Dogs Kindle. I'm your host, Chris Williams, and I have another great show planned for us. We're having another cryptid corner and having some fun tonight. But while we wait for people to gather in the chat, let me go off and show some artwork off from my own upcoming graphic novel, Scum Dogs. Here is my extreme 90s cover. I did this cover to harken back to the comic books of the 90s, as I always say. This is basically to bring you back to those 90s things when comic books that we all really love and know came out, like, the original, Wildcats, Gene 13, those kinds of books. This book is basically, this cover is basically, I want to take you back to those times. Now, the name of my graphic novel is Scum Dogs. Scum Dogs is a parody comic book. I parody the cartoons from the 80s and 90s and, any other time I want. These cartoons are basically to bring you back to those times as well, but make fun of them and make you enjoy it as well. Scum Dogs it's about a bunch of supervillains who are out to take over the world. Like evil organizations you'd see in 80s cartoons like G.I. Joe and Transformers. But this is here just to make it fun of them and have some fun with them. Now, the Scum Dogs themselves, the title characters, as I said, who they are exactly is they used to be pro athletes. They used to compete in sporting events known as the Scum Dog Sports. Basically, transhuman, superhuman sporting events held with superhuman monsters as the pro athletes. They're called Scum Dogs because they traded in their humanity for money. See, they became superhumanly powerful monsters through science or through some more esoteric means to gain the power to compete in these sporting events. So you get the idea they're not exactly... And they're called Scum and Dogs because they did it for, they traded in their humanity for money. They wanted to become superhumanly powerful and stuff like that to compete in the sports. They did it for fame and fortune, so not exactly the nicest guys around. But what happens when they get banned from sports? The Scum Dogs decide to take over the universe. Now, on this cover, you'll see a lot of characters. Almost all the characters will be appearing in my graphic novel. Here you can see my main characters, Deathmug and Buick Starpoon. Deathmug is the leader of the Scum Dogs. He's the purple guy with the metal mask. He's based on various villains from 80s cartoons. You can see him fighting his archenemy, Buick Starpoon, the guy with the pink pompadour hair. Now, Deathmug, as I said, is based on various villains from cartoons and stuff like that. As you can see, like Skeletor, he looks like Skeletor from He-Man because he has a skull face like Skeletor does. But he also looks like, the leaders of Cobra, the villains from G.I. Joe. Like Cobra Commander, he's got a metal mask. Like Serpentor, he's got gold on him. And he's purple, like the Shredder from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. He's an arrogant dictator who wants to rule the world and stuff like that. I'll maybe get a bit more into him, stuff like that. I designed him after various villains from 80s cartoons, like I said. As I say, he's got a skull face like Skeletor from He-Man, and he's got a metal mask like Cobra Commander from G.I. Joe and stuff like that, and like Serpentor from G.I. Joe's got gold on him. And I also said he was purple, like the Shredder from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, just doing that. While his archenemy Buick Starpoon, him and the rest of his team are all G.I. Joe parodies and stuff like that. But they're also parodies of, if you notice his uniform, how it looks like something from a space opera or, like a space opera, like Star Trek or Star Wars. He looks like something from those kinds of universes. That's because he leads his team in the Space Forces against the forces. He leads his team, who are part of the Space Forces, against the Scum Dogs and basically saves the universe. All right, let's see. Buick Starpoon and the rest of his team are all... because they're all G.I. Joe parodies, that means they each have a military specialty, something in the military that makes them unique and and gives them a special skill in the military that they can use to fight against the Scum Dogs and stuff like that. Now, Buick Starpoon, because he's a G.I. Joe parody, he's mostly a parody of Duke from G.I. Joe. But as I said, he's also a parody of space opera kind of characters as well, from space operas like Star Trek or Battlestar Galactica, those kinds of characters. Now, as you can see, he looks very much like a classic depiction of a space captain from a space opera. That's because he's also based on, as I said, Zap Brannigan, Captain Kirk from Star Trek, James T. Kirk, Captain Kirk, Buzz Lightyear or Buck Rogers, those kinds of heroes. He's an arrogant military guy who never admits he's wrong and will keep doing the wrong thing, even though it'll make everything worse and into a huge disaster. That's Buick Starpoon. He refuses to back down. He refuses to course correct, and he refuses to stop doing what he's doing because he's too arrogant to ever admit he's wrong. So he'll keep destroying stuff around him till he at least makes it looks like until it at least looks like he might have won something, even though everything else is basically annihilated. Because he's too stupid to admit he's ever wrong and stuff like that. Now, the other members of Buick Starpoon's team in the Space Forces are, you can see on this cover over here, this guy with the mohawk. His name is Roadhog. His military specialty is that he's an army guy. And as I said, each of the soldiers who works under Buick Starpoon has a military specialty. It's a skill that they basically, from years of being in the military, that they developed and makes them very highly proficient in it. And, Roadhog's is that he's an army guy. He used to be part of the army. Now let's go look at the other characters. Over here, we have this bald guy with a gun down here in the blue uniform. His name is Beach Pounder. His military specialty is that he's a Marine, just another Marine. Then we have this guy back here in the red uniform driving that vehicle, firing off his weapons. His name is Blast Tank. He is a heavy vehicle specialist, or a special vehicle, or a heavy vehicle specialist. He's that. Otherwise known as a tanker. He drives around heavy vehicles and fires off his weapons. If you get the joke about that, then, because if you compare him to the other characters, you'll realize it's kind of a joke. All right. Now, this cover is one of 3 different variant covers you can back when my Indiegogo goes live, folks. And I work on my book every day, and when it's done, it will be up on Indiegogo, folks. So go and back it. Here is Girl Friday. Girl Friday is another member of the Wild Rangers. The Wild Rangers is the name of Buick Starpoon's team in the Space Forces. She was assigned to work directly under Buick Starpoon and the Wild Rangers, because while the Wild Rangers fight the Scum Dogs and save people, they're also highly destructive idiots whose idea of saving something is basically destroying it. So to head off criticism, her superiors assigned Girl Friday to be Buick Starpoon's second in command, to basically watch and control, or at least basically give instructions to basically go and basically do their jobs better, not destroy everything in sight. And she hates her job. She hates Buick Starpoon. She hates the Wild Rangers because she feels like she's a little better than a sitter now of small children. So she basically really hates their guts, and she really wants out of this operation, out of working for Buick Starpoon, because she hates it so much. Now, folks, if you will, please go hit that like button for me. It really helps me fight the algorithm. The more people that hit that like button means the more people will see my content, okay? And that means my graphic novel Scum Dogs comes out all the sooner. And remember, folks, if you want to watch this video again as soon as I'm done making it, go to my Twitter page at 777 megachris1. It will be the first pinned tweet, because YouTube buries my videos for a whole day, so you won't be able to watch this video on my YouTube channel for at least several hours. So go to my Twitter page at 777. It's at 777 megachris1. It will be the first pinned tweet. And remember, folks, hit that bell for notifications, and hit the part of the bell for notifications that will give you all future notifications for my videos. And please go share this video out on Twitter and Facebook. Here we have, Deathmug's henchmen, because in all 80s cartoons, the main villain of the cartoon would have henchmen, and they'd be total idiots. These are my idiots. The pink guy down here is Sloppy, and the blue guy up here is Murder Mouth. Yeah, the blue guy up here with the top hat is Murder Mouth. They're a couple of morons that can't do anything right, and you're going to love them when you read about them in my graphic novel. They're a parody of every henchman from an 80s cartoon, because henchmen in 80s cartoons, like from He-Man or Transformers, they'd all have weird personalities, and they'd all be evil, and they'd all basically be fun to watch, but they'd always screw up somehow and basically be yelled at by their boss. And this is going to be, Deathmug being their boss is going to, You're going to have fun watching them be yelled at and stuff like that. They're just going to be fun time. And watching them screw up as well. All right. Yeah, because the Murder, Math, and Sloppy do whatever Death Mug tells them to do, but it's going to be fun watching them destroy stuff around them. So come and read my graphic novel. Here we have Hair Metal Doctor. Hair Metal Doctor is a parody of Dr. Mindbender from G.I. Joe, a mad scientist who thinks of all of Cobra's inventions and stuff, or machines and stuff. But my mad scientist here has been crossed over with a hair metal musician, because I wanted to do something more original. He thinks of all the machines the Scum Dogs use to try and take over everything. He does it while being who he is. And here we have Miss Breasty. Here we have Miss Breasty Melons. Miss Breasty Melons is a parody of the Baroness from G.I. Joe. But unlike the Baroness, she only became a villain just for fun. She's different from the Baroness. Miss Breasty Melons, as I said, is only doing this for fun. She only became a villain for fun. And the Hair Metal Doctor pinup and the Miss Breasty Melons pinup you see here will be included with other pinups in my graphic novel when you back it on Indiegogo. But I will also get these pinups out to you on t-shirts. T-shirts with these designs on them from Crypto Fashion for you to buy as well. Now, let me exit out of these, and we'll go over to Indiegogo real quick. All right. And have some more fun. Ooh, New Light Revelation Studios. Retcon Doomsday Clock. Ooh, Retcon Doomsday Clock. Yeah, I would say yeah. But then again, I'm not all that hyped on. I don't really know all that much about Doomsday Clock. So Retcon, it would probably be good. But thank you for checking in. We're 11 minutes in. Not doing too bad. Let's go over to Indiegogo real quick. Godlike the Romulus Saga has made $196,400 with 23 days left. Let's refresh this to see if this has made any more money. I spent longer on this than I really should. Let me go up here. We have this book here. It's made like that. We have this. Oh, and Glorious Rex has made $157,880. Not bad. It's got 25 days left and it looks very good. Final Boss has made quite a bit of money. Earthbound Part 2 has made $70,774. Godlike the Romulus Saga, let's take a look at this, has made $201,278. All everything I loved about. Let's read what this book is about. You can back this book for $25, but you can also back two other books as well. You can get the Godlike Supplemental, which is going to be basically two story. Well, it's a. Let's see. Godlike, the book itself is going to be 48 pages. It'll tell the story of Godlike and stuff like that. But the Godlike Supplemental will be 48 pages as well. But it will contain two 24-page stories in the world of Godlike. Basically, flesh out the universe and tell you more about the universe and its characters that live in it. But you can back for Visions 2, which is another book of pinups with sexy comic book girls, posing for you and basically showing themselves off. Now let's read what this book is about. Everything I loved about the magic of Saturday mornings and comic books, anime, and stuff like that. Best described as Star Wars meets John Carter. All hope for humanity is gone. So we thought. John Malin, Jawbreakers, returns to reinvigorate the American superhero. 10,000 years from the now, a dark age is upon us. One man, haunted by visions of a bygone age, a mythical world known as Earth, must remember his past to save the last of humanity on a distant dying world, an age where magic and super science are one. To kill a god, he has to become godlike. Yeah, as I said, the art, you can see the cover here on Godlike. It looks good. The art in it looks very good as well. There's the supplemental, like that supplemental. This will have two stories in it and stuff like that. It'll be a 48-page book with two stories detailing the world of Godlike with new characters. But you will also get Visions 2, which is another pinup book. You can back each of these books for $25. I'll get all of them together for $75, which is very good. Now, I think I did pretty well here and basically said this. I could look at this trailer, maybe. Just taking a quick look here. Andy Smith's First Man 2 Learning Curve is 26,420 with 5 days left. It looks like a good-looking book. First Man Volume 2. Yeah, this book has a couple of different covers. You can get First Man 1 and First Man 2 together for $50, so that's also very good. And it looks great. Let's see. Who is First Man? They say great power comes with great responsibility and a good time. Well, great power. They say great power comes with great power comes great responsibility. Let's face it, Luke Henry is loving being a superhero. Having inherited the power of the Galactic Champion and the power of the 10 Essences creation, with the 10 Essences of creation, Luke is hands down one of the most powerful men in the galaxy. A superhero story that's a little bit Spider-Man and a little bit other comic books and stuff like that, but a whole lot of wide-eyed, high-flying, epic outer space creationists. First Man will remind you what it felt like to read a comic book, and you're just going to like it. It looks like a pretty good book. First Man is in this one will basically be taking on, or rather, he's going to be contacted by a bunch of scientists who want to use him to help save the world. Looks pretty good. You can back this book for $25. You have several different covers. Let's go and move on to something else now, because I want to get into looking and talking about some various cryptids. So feel free to hit that like button, folks. We've got majestic not deer encountered in Goose Creek, South Carolina. All right, we have another not deer story here, and we'll be having some more fun. 13-year-old Goose Creek, South Carolina, 13-year-old, recalls his extreme encounter with a not deer entity, majestic and powerful, but not a normal deer. Recently, not a normal deer, huh? I only ran into the not deer once, and that was about a mile away from my own house on a gravel road that cut through some forest fields and goes right near Goose Creek, South Carolina. I couldn't have been more than, it says Caroline. Misspelled. Let's get back to this. I couldn't have been more than 13 at the time. I walked the forest and deer paths all the time and carried everything from a swarm of bats in it to an angry fox and even some drunk guys pissing on everything, but I had never felt threatened before. It was strange because at first I felt that everyone else was describing this despite being summer. I usually considered to be more at my home than my own bedroom. The moon was high in the sky and swollen with light, so I could clearly see the forest around me. But the despising, spite-filled, watchful presence from everywhere at once, I was on edge and only had a small knife with me. All right, not bad. But I took it out. My entire soul was screaming that someone, not something, was there. And they intended to hurt me. I wanted to run as fast as I could back to my house, but something stopped me from walking further or just sprinting off. Some sense that if I passed a specific point in the trees, I wouldn't survive. From that exact point on, the trail, the not deer, slinked out from between a cluster of trees that should have been too close together for them to hear through. To go through, to hear through. What was different to me was it felt like it was part of the forest itself, and it had giant branching antlers, the kind you never see in real life because they get broken during mating season or the bucks get shot during hunting season. They seemed more like crowns or swords than anything else, and these monstrous antlers were getting bigger. Because the deer-like creature that is in no way resembled a deer was shambling towards me. It was huge and majestic, similar to an animated drawing. My first instinct was to fight it. I was already palming my knife, despite having a visceral vision of exactly how the fight would end, with me wishing I was dead. I was ready to die in that moment and hopefully take whatever this thing was with me, but something stopped me. I have no idea what it was exactly, but something reminded me of all the other experiences in these same woods and how every other time I wrapped myself in it, that no matter what strange thing had happened before, I had accepted it, and it in turn had tolerated me, even if I couldn't accept it. And that's what I did. I mentioned earlier that the not deer felt like part of the forest, enraged and vigorous, but still familiar. So I let it wrap around me. It was an insane experience. To this day, I don't think I felt this kind of purity of hatred that I did ever again. It was like someone had hijacked my emotions to just turn spite, disgust, hate, and rage up to 100. And he said all the other things about him, all of his other emotions, else down to zero, but only for a split second. The moment I felt that swirl of emotions start to ebb, the not deer stopped coming towards me. We just looked at each other. While I struggled to breathe after having every negative feeling shoved through me, and they left, I just hopped away into the trees and bushes and left me to continue my walk home. I did go out at night on the very same trail and just wandering through the forest many nights after that. That was the only time I ever saw the not deer, but it wasn't the last time I felt their eyes on me, watching to see what I am, what I'm worth. If I've changed enough that I'm no longer worthy of the life they let me keep, I used to be out of the forest, and I think that kept me safe. But I've been living in city apartments for 5 years now. If I go back, I doubt I would walk those paths alone at night again. I'm not sure if the forest still has a claim on me. I'm not sure if the not deer will still find me worthy. Interesting story. Very, very interesting. What do you think he encountered, folks? I mean, it certainly is an interesting thing he encountered. That not deer. Usually we see them basically shambling around like they're basically have a disease on their back. They shamble backwards or upwards. They walk on their hind legs like men and basically act like they're insane. But here we have something where this guy encounters a not deer, and basically he felt hatred and stuff like that from it, or basically maybe the wild of the woods, its anger and stuff like that. But it found him worthy to live. Okay, that's very interesting. This sounds like a good story, but is it real or not? It sounds possible, very possible. All right. But is it real? It's very interesting. Let me go down here. All right. I mean, yeah, did this guy actually encounter something like that? I mean, I'm just trying to get this. He felt that he basically, because he didn't attack this creature and he just stood his ground and didn't run off, it probably would have let him go. But does that mean the creature would have actually would that mean the creature would have attacked? I feel very small, very, very. I never actually hear reports of not deer or any creatures actually attacking anybody. You never actually hear about these creatures killing anybody. But then again, there's also about missing 411, right? Where people disappear spontaneously. They encounter these creatures and they weren't and basically taken away. Is this creature actually maybe one of these ultra-terrestrials and basically shifted into a animal form to basically look at this guy? As you said, it doesn't sound like a normal deer. It had its antlers sound more like swords or a crown, and could it very well be they encountered some sort of whatever passes for an organization or leadership in this world of the cryptid, some sort of highly placed member of it that found him worthy to live and basically did not kidnap him or do anything like that. Maybe, could be. Or it could be that basically he was messing with his head, making him think that. It could be that he made him think that he looked at a not deer and was just screwing with him. He doesn't actually hate him at all. But he basically knew that if this creature messed with his head, making him feel anger and hate, that it wouldn't do anything more than basically stand there, not sure what to do. Allowing this creature to get close to the human without worrying about the human actually attacking him. Could be as well. Then again, we don't really know what these things actually think like. We cannot know that this guy has felt these creatures looking at him before, and a lot of times when he's been in the woods before, basically studying him. So we don't really know what this is actually about. But it's all just basically, what can you say about these creatures? That they're very powerful. I mean, yeah, there's that. But why is it they always let these guys go? But we're only thinking that they let these guys go. Could be that this not deer could have kidnapped him and basically took him back to wherever they live, maybe the inner earth or fairyland, and basically used him as a slave or maybe breeding stock. Maybe it was an alien that he actually encountered and didn't find him, this human, interesting enough to basically kidnap for experiments or something. We don't know. All we know is that these stories, like UFO and encounters with ultra terrestrials always seem to basically have a lot of elements that are basically the same of all of these stories. You encounter these weird creatures in the woods. You see these orbs. You see this light in the sky. Sometimes you get away from it. Sometimes it kidnaps you. But almost in all these stories, you always find yourself pretty much all right. We don't have stories of these people actually crippled or injured either. But why do you think such things are? Why wouldn't this creature just have attacked him? I mean, obviously, from this guy saying he would have fought it and stuff like that, do you think he would actually had any kind of ability to actually do that to the creature? Maybe he would have. But it's highly interesting to talk about these not deer as well as other cryptid stories. Wondering about them. Now, let's see. Let's see, mimicking entity in Southwest England, aliens expert. Let's take a look at this. Southwest England resident recalls constant harassment by a mimicking energy at a home. The witness thought the activity was similar to that of a skinwalker, huh? I live in a pretty rural area of Southwest England with a large wood behind me in front of a fair amount of trees and grassland. But about 1 month ago, I was awake at 3 a.m. or something. I often sleep late and hear noises from my window. The average rustling bat rats squeak in the long grass, cats jumping from the occasional dog bark at the far distance. Night, however, was different. Just basically looking at various things and trying to find something to watch. Surfing shows basically looking at shows when I heard a dog barking, but it sounded right outside of my house, like it could have been in my garden. I do have a dog, but he was asleep and inside at this point. I could very much tell that this dog was in my garden. It sounded off, though, like sent shivers straight down your spine off. It happened maybe 3 times, and I was getting worried it would wake my parents up, but was just too scared to move. I couldn't understand why a dog at the time was in my garden. It was weird. It was a weird bark, almost aggressive, or like it was trying to scare me. After that, I heard loud noises as if this creature was jumping away and past my gazebo. So weird to think about. I heard my brother outside my door and got him to close my window for me without even explaining why. I was scared. My ankle was sprained almost a month and a half ago, and I was struggling with opening and closing my window and just walking in general. So he didn't seem too concerned. The ankle plays a hurt later on. I Googled a bit about Skinwalker, that wondering if they were even around the UK. I like researching things like Wendigos and Skinwalkers, but therefore I knew they were native to North America, but I couldn't think of anything to explain this weird dog bark like sound and bounding in my garden. I eventually went to sleep after creeping myself out more. Nothing really much happened for about 2 weeks. I'd go to the bathroom and would hear strange noises. The owl would start hooting. Oh, by the way, folks, if you're wondering, I couldn't do a live stream yesterday because my internet went down. Sorry about that. I thought I basically should explain why I didn't do a live stream yesterday. It happens. And I'm sorry about that, folks. I really wish I could have done one yesterday and we could have had some more fun. But feel free to hit that like button and stuff like that. And we'll have some fun right now. Let's get back to this article. Yeah. We hear strange noises and the owl would start hooting as soon as I walked in. I always wondered if it could see me move through the window, but pretty sure that's paranoia. I don't know, just living in a rural area is creepy though. So at this point, I didn't think much of any of the strange noises. I hear things like this all the time. Then something disgusting happens. Something that makes me feel so sick. Even process it. My foot was better now. Still had to hobble and stuff, but it didn't hurt when I applying bits of pressure. I walked to my bathroom as usual. The window was open, which puts me on edge normally, but I just wasn't thinking about it much. I sit down and browse through my phone. It was at this point I hear, "Mommy," I froze. I didn't even know what to think. It wasn't a scared tone. It was an annoyed, "Why are you ignoring me tone, and it sounded like a 2-year-old girl whining right outside my window. I didn't make a sound, but instantly messaged my girlfriend as it happens for a second time, this time louder, bearing in mind about 10 p.m. It was dead silent other than the toddler. I couldn't hear any adults, which confused me, and I was trying to fight the urge to look outside my window to see if there really was a lost toddler, but I was too scared. But then again, I heard that same barking noise. I felt sick. It barked maybe once or twice, but it sounded further away than where the toddler had been. I rang my girlfriend and ran as fast as I could with my ankle out of there, closed my own bedroom blinds, and got into bed. Now, this shook me for days. I took a walking stick with me into the bathroom to close the window. I rushed out of there immediately and always closed my blinds before nightfall. But up until now, I've slowly been moving in from it, not closing the bathroom window, having my blinds open a bit later, generally having Googled or thought about skinwalkers today. Well, he didn't do it till this today, huh? This is by far the worst, and one, it makes me feel nauseated thinking about it. A chair is in front of my door, and I'm guarding it too. Okay, so here's what it was. My mom recently has brought her back out. She has a degenerative disc disorder. Degenerative, huh? Prone to a bad back. It's been bad for about a week anyway. Every time she manages to walk up the steps, she sighs at the top of outside my door. I'm next to the bathroom. It's like a content yet painful sigh, like she's holding it in as she walks so she can let it out when she pauses. Today was the first day she'd left the house with my brother for this job interview. My dad is at work. I am home alone. She sat here in my bed. This happened about an hour ago. I'm sat here holding my guinea pig when I hear a huge sigh right outside my door. I instantly think my mom, and almost for a split second opened my door. Then I remember she just left the house. Instantly I feel warm and scared. Fight or flight kicks in again. Skinwalker comes straight to mind. I hear it again, even louder this time, right outside my door. A heavy-hearted, painful sigh. I question my sanity. I shout out, "Mom," to see if it was her, if she'd somehow just come back inside because her back is playing up and she couldn't go. I get no answer. I don't even think twice. I put my guinea pig back in his cage, grab a walking stick, push it against my door, and then ring my girlfriend explaining everything. Then I hear it for a third time, but it sounds like it's at the top of the stairs now, like it's retreated. My girlfriend couldn't hear it, but I could. It made my skin crawl. And then again, for the fourth time in the same place, I started banging my door, telling it to piss off, and it's not welcome here. And I put my chair in front of the door, blocking it. My girlfriend rings my mom. I have no credit, and I explained to her what happened. Pretty sure she thinks I'm crazy. Seriously, has an entity similar to a skinwalker infiltrated my house? Want to kill me? Is there even a skinwalker? If not, what was the sign outside my door, and what was saying mommy? What was saying? No, obviously it was not an actual skinwalker, not a Native American witch transforming into another animal-like entity. This has been occurring in England, seems to suggest that this was a mimicking energy, possibly earthbound. I sent a note to the experiencer telling him that they really should stop constantly freaking out each time something occurs. Just stay positive and not respond. That will usually lessen the activity to a point where it stops. Okay, I get it. Think that's what it was? Do you think it was something like that, folks? It's very interesting to think about. That's yet another entity and stuff like that. Is it such a thing as a mimic, as a witch or a wizard? Could it be maybe a native wizard? And basically it was a native witch or something. Was it basically acting like a skinwalker that basically is fighting this guy for whatever reason? It could be. If it has such powers, then yeah, I can believe that as well. It could very well be. Let's go over here. There are a few books, a few articles I want to look at. Can tulpas and thought forms be created from the world of entertainment? We could look at that as well. Let's take a look at it. Heading of today's article might sound strange, but bear with me before we get to the main part of the story. Here's some background of those tulpas and thought forms mentioned. Here's a good example. Every thought of man upon being evolved passes into the inner world and becomes an active entity by associating itself. Coalescing, we might term it. An elemental, that is to say, with one of the semi-intelligent forces of the kingdoms, it survives as an active intelligence. Uh, a creature of the mind's begetting for a longer or shorter period proportionate with the original intensity of the cerebral action which generated. Thus, a good thought is perpetrated as an active beneficent power. An evil one is a maleficent demon, and so man is continually peopling his current in space with a world of his own crowded with the offspring of his fancies, desires, impulses, and passions. A current which reacts upon any sensitive and or nervous organization which comes in contact with it in proportion to its dynamic intensity. In other words, be careful of what you think, as it may come straying out of your mind and into the real world. Okay, that's what a tulpa is. It basically gains a light. If your thoughts, basically, if they are powerful, can they actually create an entity? Could it be good or bad? And be careful with it, because it could basically be dangerous. Now we're going to basically read a bit more into this article. Began with a woman named Paulina Charlesworth. According to Paulina, bright summer day in July 1986 that her strange encounter occurred as she worked on Saturdays. Pauline explained to me when we first met she had a regular day off work during the week and had chosen this particular day to prepare a picnic basket and take a trip to the castle ring, an ancient site that sits on the fringes of the Cornick Chase Woods, England. In no time at all, something strange happened. The atmosphere changed. The best way I can describe it is to say it was like I was really in the chase, but it was as if I was in someone's dream of what the chase should look like, as if it was all a mirage, but a good one, says Pauline, says the woman. Out of the trees came a horrific form running directly toward her. It was said of Pauline, a man. The man, however, was quite unlike any that she had ever seen before. He had a long, filthy hair, matted beard, and a dumpy face that was far more prehistoric than modern in appearance. He was relatively short in height, perhaps no more than 5 feet 2 inches, and was clad in animal skins that extended from his waist to his knees, and with a long piece of animal skin that was draped over his right shoulder. In his right hand, the man held what was undoubtedly the large antlers of a deer, and that had been expertly fashioned into a dagger-like weapon that looked like it could inflict some serious damage. Indeed, if needed. Then out of the sky came the most horrific thing that Pauline had ever seen in her entire life. It was, she recalled, a creature about 4 feet in height, human in its shape, only oily, greasy black skin, arms and legs, and a pair of large bat-like leathery wings, and just for good measure, it had 2 hideous red glowing eyes, too. It was like the devil, recalled Pauline, perhaps with a high degree of understandable justification. Soon it was all over. Well, not quite. The book that Pauline had taken with her to read at Castle Ring, Robert Huxley's acclaimed fantasy novel, Mythical Wood. The book is one of my all-time favorites, one I read at least once a year. The story tells of how, after the end of the Second World War, Steve Huxley returns to England upon getting the news that his father has died. George Huxley had devoted his life to the exploration of the ancient rope wood that backed up against the family home and kept detailed records of his research into the mysterious area. But rope wood is unlike any other. It is inhabited by the mythicos. The book's title and what exactly might they be? They are creatures of characters from British folklore and mythology, such as Robin Hood, King Arthur, whose curious existence is directly tied to the imaginations and mind of those that believe in them, and who in unconscious collective fashion help bring them to some form of quasi-independent life. In the depths of the magical wood, having looked deep into her experience and even more, Pauline believed that somehow the blending of the story of Hollick's book, Vivid Dream, of a similar proportions very briefly resulted in the creation of a whole body of tulpas and manifested in the form of entities from a time long agone. Could be. Now, into the Slender Man, a theory suggests that the internet itself is becoming slowly, bit by bit, self-aware. Could the online world into which almost all of us are hooked be the culprit? September 2012, Sydney Morning Herald article titled "A Self-Aware Internet Not So Far-Fetched" asked, could the internet wake up, and if so, what sorts of thoughts would it have? And would it be friend or foe? They are important, integral questions, particularly so when it comes to the Slender Man, what it really is. Has the Slender Man come to life? Since 2009, many people claim to have seen and been attacked, plagued, and terrified by this skeletal giant in black. But how could such a thing like that happen? By accepting without question at all the idea that the Slender Man is more just a piece of internet fiction. When my book, The Slenderman Mysteries, was published, I received numerous accounts from people who believed that somehow their very actions, namely buying right into the saga of the Slender Man, had led to the skinny thing to come to a strange form of existence. Can reading a book about going online provoke the creation of the very thing that a person is focused on? I have a lot of bizarre accounts that strongly suggest that's exactly it. That's interesting to look at, huh? It's very interesting to read through. Let's go look at some more articles. And that comes to another thing. Could these things like the not deer or could these things like the not deer and let me go over here, not deer, or basically this energy that this guy says that this mimicking energy that he encountered, or this wizard or witch thing he encountered in his home in England, could these all be tulpas created by human minds? He knew about skinwalkers before he started basically feeling and carrying these things. Could he somehow his belief in it basically create this, or basically helped manifest? This is very much like we talked earlier, folks. It's very interesting to think about. But is this what happened with the not deer? He basically has felt this guy, the guy who encountered the not deer, this majestic not deer. He basically felt like he'd been watched for a while in the forest for years and stuff like that, as he basically walked around and finding like that. Is his own thoughts and his own fears and anger is what manifested in the not deer, and he basically encountered it. And it's only his own, because the thing didn't kill him after all, because in his own fear and hatred that manifested itself, and basically thought it found him worthy to live, and that was only because he thought maybe it would attack him. And but in reality, the tulpa, the creature he encountered, basically needs him to live to basically believe in him, so it can continue to exist as well. To continue to exist by feeding off of his fear and belief. Is that what he encountered? And this is what we have to ask ourselves when you encounter these creatures. Are these creatures real, or are they just not? What it means is they're not hallucinations. They're very capable and real of inflicting harm and damage to the surrounding areas around them. But are they in fact basically just caused by people believing in them? Because that's what they did. It's highly interesting to think about and to think. Now, there's a few other articles I want to look through. Where are you? Let's see. Let's go over here. Let's see. Is it possible the Wendigo, Bigfoot, one and the same? Is it, folks? Let's go look at this article now. That's a controversial question to ask for sure, but there may be some degree of reality to it. Let's take a look. First and foremost, the one thing that makes Wendigo stand out from Bigfoot is that the former is dangerous, man-eating killer for the most part. Bigfoot creatures seem to be pretty non-dangerous. Let's have a closer look and say, as the other tale goes, the Wendigo was once a lost hunter during a, cold winter. Yeah. This man's intense hunger drove him to cannibalism. After feasting on another human's flesh, he transformed into a crazed man-beast, roaming the forest in search of more people to eat. The story of the Wendigo, sometimes spelled Wendigo, Wendigo, comes from Algonquin Native American folklore. Not just Algonquin. There are a lot of basically stuff about talking about these various man-beasts and stuff like that. And the exact details vary depending on who you ask. Some people have claimed to have encountered the beast, say it's a relative of Bigfoot, but other reports compare the Wendigo to a werewolf instead. Moving on, there are the words of the Canadian Encyclopedia. A Wendigo is a supernatural being belonging to the spiritual traditions of Algonquin-speaking First Nations in North America. Wendigos are described as powerful monsters. They have a desire to kill and eat their victims. In most legends, humans transform into Wendigos because of their greed or weakness. Various indigenous traditions consider Wendigos dangerous because of their thirst for blood and their ability to affect otherwise healthy people or communicates with evil, or communities with evil. Evil. Wendigo legends are essentially, well, cautionary tales about isolation and selfishness and the importance of a community. Now let's get to the matter of Bigfoot creatures. They may look dangerous and imposing, but a study of the history of Bigfoot seems to show that primarily creatures are prone to keeping their distance. But there is a Native American legend about Bigfoots eating people and basically hurting them, where a bunch of hunters had to go and kill them. That's because a lot of these stories can blend together, and a lot of people don't know much about them, so the stories will basically get, well, basically not be well thought out, and basically a lot of them will a lot of these stories will basically be confused with each other. Let's get back to this article. Look dangerous and imposing, by a study of the history of Bigfoot seems to show that primarily the creatures are prone to keeping their distance from the human race. Now and again, they'll throw rocks at people, and there's a theory that the Bigfoots have the ability to use infrasound to keep us away, specifically by creating nausea, panic, dizziness, and even temporary paralyzing terror. Yeah, this sounds very much what we read earlier with the not deer, isn't it, folks? Okay, if this creature isn't a tulpa, it's able to somehow, like the not deer, basically cause feelings in people where they basically, the guy didn't attack the thing because he was basically filled with hate, as well as basically almost like he was being controlled to not basically attack it. Do these creatures have this kind of power? Bigfoot seeker Scott Carpenter said of his very own encounter with Bigfoot and infrasound, "I am not an acoustic expert or a scientist. My findings are based on observation and common sense. I think that I was under the influence of infrasound during my encounter with the Bigfoot on April 30th. On April 2010, Bigfoot manipulated my perception and sanitized, basically erased my memory, basically controlled me. Even more disturbing was the fact that I did not react to observing the Bigfoot. I had to have initially recognized what it was and where it was hiding. I made 2 attempts to zoom in on the Bigfoot and got a close-up video. Sometimes during this process, I was subjected to the influence of infrasound and strongly influenced or brainwashed into walking off. It is almost like my memory was wiped clean. I was given instructions to leave, and I did." Yeah, this sounds like, wow. Yeah, so all this does sound, this does sound like what we read earlier with the not deer, doesn't it, folks? A bit like sinister and even dangerous when it comes to the Wendigo, but deaths at the hands of Bigfoot are rare, at least as far as we know. There are some such claims, though. As for the Wendigos, there's absolutely no doubt these things are nothing but dangerous, violent killing machines that should be avoided at all times, or perhaps things are not quite that black and white. It would not at all surprise me over the years and over the decades, even centuries too, that Bigfoot creatures starving in winter times and in need for themselves and their families might resort to the ultimate answer, namely killing some of us to save some of them. I would not be surprised too if at least some Bigfoot may have got a taste for us, and to the point where, for some at least, we have become their primary source of food. But with most of the Bigfoot seemingly avoiding such activity, it may have created a belief that there were 2 different creatures, the Wendigo and the Bigfoot. In reality, however, there may have only ever been one unknown animal, a shy and largely non-hostile Bigfoot, violent and dangerous people-eating Bigfoot that has become a piece of folklore of the woods. Could be as well, huh, folks? Could well be. Or it could be that maybe people believe in these creatures and they come to life. Or maybe somehow these creatures, if it's not a tulpa, basically can manipulate us. It could be as that as well. Haunting and Dark Mysteries of the Mysterious and Grovely Wood. Maybe I'll look at that one. But let's talk about this. It's very interesting to talk about these creatures. Does Bigfoot actually exist? Is it not a tulpa, but does it somehow basically have the power to influence us? Could it be telepathic, as other people have said in other articles? I mean, it could be. Very well could be. It's interesting to talk about and to think about. Or is it the fact that maybe this creature is a tulpa, but still has the ability to influence us by basically showing itself off? So you see the creature and then you get frightened and basically, or angry, and you make enough energy so it can basically feed off of you, so it'll continue to exist. Or are they interlopers from another universe? I mean, it's all just basically what you think about this and what could actually be and stuff. I mean, What you basically, if it's a tulpa, it's only if Bigfoot is a tulpa, or it only exists because you believe in it. The same goes for the Wendigo and the Skinwalker, or the not deer. Basically, but is it possible these creatures also somehow have the power to influence us, so that we believe in them more, giving them more ability to live? Or is it that these creatures actually exist? They're actually something like ultra terrestrials or aliens, and they manipulate our perceptions of them? It could be. By the way, folks, hit that like button for me. It really helps me fight the algorithm, okay? Hit that like button so more people see my content, and that means my graphic novel Scum Dogs comes out all the sooner. Let me go over here just real quick. Not doing too bad on the chats. Well, not on the likes and stuff like that. Let's look at this. Hunting and Dark Mysteries of the Mysterious Grove Woods. Maybe I should say this one more time. Hit that like button for me. It really helps me fight the algorithm. More people that hit that like button means my graphic novel Scum Dogs comes out all this sooner. As well as, please remember, if you want this video, once I'm done making this video, go to my Twitter page at 777megachris1. It will be there'll be a link to this video on the first pinned tweet, because YouTube buries my videos at least for a whole day. So you won't be able to watch my video on my YouTube channel for at least till sometime tomorrow. So go to my Twitter page at 777megachris1, as well as hit that bell for notifications, and hit the part of the bell for all future notifications for my videos. And please go share this video out on Twitter and Facebook. Laying out in southern, as we get into this article, southern Western England, not far from Salisbury near Walton and only 8 miles from Stonehenge, is one of the largest woodlands in this country, a place called Glovely Wood, designated as an important wildlife site. Area is also historically important, much Iron Age and Roman archaeology in the vicinity of the woods, as well as the ruins of Iron Age Romano-British settlements, hill forts, and farming enclosures, with an ancient Roman road meandering right through it. It is all located in a region known for its mystical mysteries, populated by numerous quaint villages and medieval homes and haunted places. Indeed, Grovely Wood itself, medieval towns and haunted, as well as haunted places. Indeed, Grovely Wood itself is long said to be haunted, cursed, or both. It is full of plenty of dark lore and mystical mysteries. How long is this article exactly? I might take a quick look. I think I can do this. Let's see. Perhaps one of the most well-known spooky stories orbiting the wood is that of the 4 sisters called Hensel Sisters, Hans Sisters, or maybe the Witch Sisters, or, Hensel Sisters, who were Danish women, had moved into the town of Wilton in 1737. Just as soon as they arrived, the area was devastated by an epidemic of smallpox, which ravaged the village and killed at least 136 people in short order. Considering the time involved and how few new visitors came that way, it did not take long at all for the locals to come to the conclusion that this was a clear case of witchcraft being carried out by the sisters, who they accused of being in league with the devil and going about some grim business. This was an era in which to even be suspected of being a witch never really came to much good. In the Hep townspeople soon forged an unruly mob to relentlessly hunt down the offending witches. When the Hensel sisters were finally found, they were dragged from their hut, kicking and screaming, and without trial were hauled off into Gravely Wood to be ruthlessly bludgeoned to death, buried apart from each other so that they could not conspire against their murderers, each grave marked by a twisted gnarled birch tree, with some stories saying that these trees grew that way after the burials as a sign of dark magic in the ground. To this day, the trees are often decorated with ribbons and trinkets. A hollow at the base of one of the trees has served as a sort of altar for the sisters, with people often leaving trinkets, amulets, and often other offerings within, and the ghosts of the witches are said to prowl around the area to this day. One Maria Williams, Twilight Shadow's paranormal investigator team, has said that the visit to this place. We carried on walking and passing the trees where the Hensel sisters were allegedly murdered. My colleagues who have visited this area during the day say that gifts and offerings are left inside a hollow in one of these trees. They were right. There were copious amounts of little treasures left by people as offerings to the Hensel Sisters. As we entered the clearing, for all we felt the power of the area, the energy is immense. I feel it is positive force, but due to the intensity of the energy, it can overwhelm people and make them feel very uneasy. I showed Jack and Sharon the first tree with a very little offerings left in the hollow at the back. We then took Jackie and Sharon to the second tree. Jackie did not think that this area was particularly active, even though it is quite close to the other tree. She thought that it seemed dead. We approached the third tree. Sharon said that she felt that the Hensel number 3 tree held a positive energy. The team off previously commented of this during previous visits to Grovely. We stayed here for a while. We went back to Hensel number one tree. We gathered around its mighty trunk and tried to tune into the energies there. I felt a small gathering of people, all women. They came very close to us, and the intensity of their presence seemed to fill the clearing. I think they wondered what our motives were. I suggested that Jackie called out. She did. Out shortly afterwards, we heard the noise of the bats, which had been flying around us all evening. Suddenly, Sharon thought she heard a woman's voice. I called out again and again, requesting that any spirit made any noise for us. Some of us thought we heard a chiming sound, which stopped us in our tracks. Shortly afterwards, from the other side of the clearing, some of us heard muttering. We stayed there for quite a while, and the energy continued to get stronger. Jackie suggested that perhaps some of this energy we were feeling may be emerging from elementals within the area. It was strange that she could say this, as when I had visited the woods earlier in the day with Loretta, we thought that the woodland possessed a strong elemental presence. Eventually, we returned to the Roman road and started to walk back. I felt that walking the road was more frightening than being near the alleged resting area. Well, to the where they of the trees, of these sisters. I felt completely protected there. A report to the sisters haunting the area are so intense that there have been erected little enchanted log circles that supposedly will protect you if you're accosted by them. Another spooky story from the area is that what is called a Bokuma Woodsman. Bokuma Woodsman, called supposedly the ghost of a poacher who was hanged from a tree here for his crimes and who is often seen as a shadowy hooded figure prowling about and prone to physically harassing visitors by tripping them or yanking on their clothing. His presence supposedly heralded by the crackling of a twig. Maria Williams has said of the team's experience. We were wondering if we would see the Bokuma Woodmans who said to haunt the Gridley Forest. James said that he has kept thinking that we saw figures leaning on the trees. This happened 4 times through our time there. Vicky kept. Well, their encounters with this entity, huh? Vicky, let's get back to where we were. Vicky kept hearing sounds which she described as a throaty cough. She felt that it was something trying to get our attention. It was difficult for everyone to hear noises clearly as it was raining quite hard, and the sound of the raindrops was quite loud. We heard all of the obvious animal noises, but some noises just did not seem to be of natural origin. Suddenly, as we were walking, I felt my jacket being tugged really hard. Twice I swung around, quickly convinced that it was one of the team, and was quite amazed, a little frightened that it was not. Vicky was the nearest person to me, and at the same time that my jacket was pulled, she felt as if she had been shoved out of the way. James kept seeing flashes of light in the trees. All right. That's interesting to think about, isn't it, folks? Yeah. Yeah, it's very interesting. Do you think these people actually encountered these creatures, these ghosts, or as we said earlier, all these things somehow connected to each other? That these people expected to see ghosts and they encountered them. Maybe. All right, let's get back to where we were. Versus me, at the same time that my jacket was pulled, she felt as if she had been shoved out of the way. James kept seeing flashes of light in the trees. We wondered if it was lightning, seeing as it was raining so hard. It was not torches, and we were too far from any road for it to be car headlights. It didn't seem to be thundering, so we drew no conclusion as to what the lights could be. We had to walk just a little way and on, and I heard a deep, throaty sound like the clearing of a throat. A male. Vicky also heard it, and she said that this was the noise that she had heard previously. I must admit that what it really did sound like someone trying to get our attention. We carried on walking. James, Vicky, and I kept hearing footsteps on the road behind us every time we looked around us. Now, this sounds like another kind of creature from basically Japan, a yokai that basically walks behind you, but you don't see it. What you're supposed to do with this kind of creature is basically go off to the side of the road, say the name of the creature, and then say to the creature, say the name of the creature, and say you can walk on by me, and the creature will walk by you, and then by you, so that it'll be in front of you, and it'll disappear, and it will no longer be following behind you and stuff. We carried on. This sounds very similar to that. Let's get back to this article. We carried on walking, James, Vicky, and I kept hearing footsteps and on the road behind us. Every time we looked around, there was no sign of anything walking behind us. I was thinking about the feeling of the tugging in my coat, which I experienced earlier, when suddenly I felt my trouser leg, his left one, suddenly pulled up to my knee. I was really shocked, as I could tell it had not been hooked with a twig, as I had felt the hands touching my leg. My trouser leg was then pulled back down. If the situation had not been so frightening, I would have found this funny. Vicky and I discussed whether I should ask the perpetrator to pull down my hood, but I thought I would either freak out or laugh hysterically if it happened. We commenced our walk. I looked over to James, and I saw a person walking by my side of him with just a couple of steps ahead. This person was hooded and was walking with his head bent down. I looked in front of me and saw the rest of the... interesting. Let's see. With the rest of it, this person was hooded. I looked in front of me and saw that the rest of the team, everyone was headed except for me, Vicky, and James. I looked back to the figure, and it was gone. This was a split second, and there was nobody within the vicinity. Vicky then said that at the same time she had also seen a shadowy figure walking beside James. If the ghost of the woodsman does exist, the apparition that Vicky and I witnessed fits that category perfectly. We heard James and asked whether it was... James jingling, he had said, and that it was not. Interesting what we just read there. Might have to reread that again, huh? I mean, yeah, they saw this creature, but did they actually, is this what it really was? Maybe it was maybe it wasn't ghosts at all, or maybe it was ghosts. Could this actually have been the sisters themselves mimicking this guy, saying that this woodsman exists? Or what? I mean, really, what could that be? There's also a lot of paranormal activity reported from the Roman road that runs through the forest, where there is supposedly a ghostly band of Roman soldiers that marches up and down, although never actually seen. Visitors will report the disembodied voices of men speaking Latin, as well as the sound of stomping footsteps like marching in cold chill that will sweep through the air. Occasionally there will be seen ghost lights that coincide with the phenomenon, but actual apparitions. There is almost always the intense unsettling feeling of being watched here. The whole forest was other miscellaneous paranormal phenomenon orbiting it, including anomalous sounds, shadowy figures, black hounds with glowing eyes, flickering lights in the dark, and many others. This is obviously a place to which weird forces are drawn, and whatever the reason might be, Gravelly Wood seems to be a ground zero for some pretty strange stuff. One of these places that will perhaps forever exist in the realm, that we will not understand. All right, we looked at that article, and it gave us a good idea, huh? I mean, this sounds very much like every other story we've covered tonight. Do people actually basically give power to these creatures? Was this actually a disembodied energy itself? It was basically frightening people there, basically so that they give it more energy and make it more real. Because the more these people seem to be looking for these creatures, the more that they encountered the actual sisters who were accused of witchcraft, or this guy who was actually a disembodied, or whether this guy was a woodsman. Could it actually be that this shape-shifting entity basically was getting them frightened, so it would give them more energy? So it basically pretended to be these various apparitions, so it could basically get more energy out of them and make itself more real. Is that what they actually encountered? It's very interesting to think about, folks. But we've come to the end of today's show, so please go and subscribe to my YouTube channel, Read Comics They're Bad For You, okay? The there in my title is misspelled. It's Read Comics They're Bad For You. The there is THERE. Make sure you're still subscribed. Leave some comments down below. Also, hit that like button for me because it really helps me fight the algorithm. The more people that see my content means the more people will back my graphic novel Scum Dogs. So hit that like button for me because it really helps me. And remember, the more people that do see my content means my graphic novel Scum Dogs comes out all the sooner. As well as please hit that bell for notifications and make sure to hit the part of the notifications bell that will give you all future notifications for my videos. And please go share this video out on Twitter and Facebook. Remember, folks, also go and subscribe to Stitched Together Pics. Stitched Together Pics is a YouTube channel that deserves far more subscribers. It's hosted by the Maniacal Cinephile, a character who has, well, a lot of different, who's a lot of fun to watch. The Maniacal Cinephile is just a great character to watch. So go and subscribe to Stitched Together Pics, as well as go over and subscribe to Creepy Little Book. Creepy Little Book is like the Art Bell radio show. He does little videos talking about high strangeness, but he also does live streams every night. He live streams on weekdays at 12:30 a.m. and on weekends at 10 o'clock p.m. He talks about aliens and ghosts and learns so much. As well as please go and subscribe to Robot Co-op. Robot Co-op is like Mr. Science Theater 3000. They do these live streams that are so much fun. And when you watch them play video games, it's just a lot of fun to watch. Go and subscribe to Robot Co-op. Remember, folks, I'll be back again tomorrow around 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock or 11 o'clock p.m. for another live stream. So be sure to come back again then. I'm Chris Williams from the Scum Dogs Kennel. Thank you all for joining me.